Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Hope y'all have had a fantastic start to your week, a great Monday. There continues to be a lot to talk about in the tropics as the National Hurricane Center is definitely throwing some alarms out there. There's three areas that have a 40% chance to develop here in the next 5 days. There's a lot to break down, and there's one specific area that I'm really wanting to check out here and really discuss and break down for you guys and some possible scenarios, some steering currents in place, and just a pattern in place that could evolve this potential storm down here and eventually possibly affect the U.S. As we get into maybe this time next week. So we're going to break this down and talk about what's going on with these two systems, and also look a little bit further ahead into the first part of September and talk about what looks to be a very active period coming up. So if you guys have not subscribed, definitely hit the subscribe button. Like the video if you like it. I'm just a guy who's very passionate about the weather, and I love talking about my passion to others. And this platform gives me an opportunity to do that. So I appreciate all the love, and I appreciate the support. If y'all got anything I can pray about, definitely drop it in the comments so I can pray for you guys. And I do ask that you guys pray for me too. My little girl, she's in first grade. Um, it's just crazy world out there. You know, they found out a couple kids had COVID at my school, or at my little girl's school. And she was only at school for 3 days and is already having to quarantine for the next 2 weeks. So my little first grader didn't even have a chance to get used to her environment or anything like that. So she's already got to quarantine. It's just a brutal world out there for anybody, and definitely pray for anybody affected by the virus. Very scary times out there. So let's talk about the weather here, and let's get going here because there's a lot to talk about. As you can tell, three areas of interest. We look at the Atlantic Basin as a whole. This is 97L. It's an Invest 97L. This is Invest 98L. We're going to talk a little bit about these, but we're really going to talk about something that's going to brew up in this area, this tropical wave kind of right in here, and it's going to consolidate itself with the monsoon trough right here. And there's just a lot to discuss, so bear with me. We're going to take a look at some model runs. We're also going to break down some scenarios, so stick with me in this video because I really think there's a threatening scenario as we get into next week. Maybe not for the U.S. necessarily, but definitely somewhere in North America. So let's break it down here. Let's talk about this. So the latest Euro, I want to show you the latest operational runs and then break them each down. So this is the latest European model. This got a lot of noise here in the weather community today. I'll go on and show it to you. A lot of people are showing it anyways. It basically shows a monsoon trough really that pops up some development, and then something called a Central American gyre. That's spelled G-Y-R-E, Central American gyre. And that's basically a bunch of low pressures that are kind of circulating around each other. And eventually sometimes they get over water if there's some favorable conditions, depending on if there's low shear, which sure looks to be, and I'll talk about that too. Sometimes, obviously, the waters are warm here in the Western Caribbean here. So it's primed for development. Sea surface temperatures are definitely adequate enough for tropical development. And if anything pops up here, sometimes it can drift north and be a threatening tropical system. And that's what we got to break down here. So we're going forward here. Check it out. Some development gets going here as we get into the weekend. And I know you see this up here. We're going to talk about that too. And then as it gets going, this quickly intensifies into a hurricane and ultimately makes landfall as a pretty strong hurricane in the coastal areas of Texas. And this is just one scenario. It's just operational European run. That's a 985 millibar low making its way into Texas, probably as a Category 1, maybe a Category 2 hurricane. That is one scenario for around this time next week or around Tuesday of next week. We'll look at the latest GFS. We'll break this down. Check this out. So same system. Shows a lot of action going on right down here. A lot of green. That's basically what we're going to shorten and call the CAG, which is what they shorten it in it's an acronym they use for the weather for Central American gyre, CAG, CAG. So this gets going here. It's just a ball of a tropical cyclone trying to develop. Could this be Ida? Not sure yet. We got to figure that out. But it could be Julian, because Ida might form out here, way out in the northern Atlantic. So this could be Julian. It could be neither. So it's kind of hard to figure out what's going to be the names, because at the same time you're going to have some tropical development, I think, that tries to pop up here in the North America, the North Atlantic, here also at the same time that this energy is developing. And as this gets going here, It takes the more southerly route, and I'll tell you why here in a second. There's a reason why it does that, and gets into the Bay of Campeche, and kind of what Grace did, and eventually makes landfall a little bit north of what Grace did. But if you watch it right at the tail end of the life of the storm before it makes landfall, it tries to kind of jolt north. And another big piece of this is a ridge of high pressure right here. So you got ridging of high pressure. You have sea surface temperatures. You have what you call an upper level anticyclone right here, which is ULAC for short, another weather acronym. There's a lot of players that steer this thing, that promote development, that don't promote development, but there's not a lot of things that don't promote development in this case besides land interaction, and that is a scenario. So the latest GFS takes it into Mexico still, but this could get north into Texas, so there's a lot to break down. So what we got going here is, if I back it up here, these little area of vortices right here is what you call the monsoon trough. It's basically a tropical development, a lot of tropical moisture that just kind of consolidates itself around the same area. What goes on here is, like I said, something called the CAG, which is a bunch of tropical disturbances that get going. It's multiple vortices at first, and it's a big broad area, and this is what this is going to be, a big broad area of circulation of multiple vortices trying to dominate one another, not literally, but one tries to become the more dominant one, and that's sometimes where that tropical cyclone can develop. So what's going on with this, as I'm just showing you the GFS, for example, is the more southerly vortices kind of combine together, and they become the dominant vortice. So what happens there is it takes the more southerly route, so it goes over a more piece of land, which is the Yucatan Peninsula. As it goes over, it kind of just takes the southerly route, so it takes, well, the southerly route, which is Mexico instead of Texas. So, you know, I'm going to break down also here. Let's see if this will pop up. Here we go. So this is the European scenario of the same thing. This is a vortices. It shows what could be Julian, what could be Ida. We don't know yet because we don't know what this is going to do beforehand. And it shows all these vortices coming together. But if you look right here, it doesn't look that strong of a signal, but it looks like the more northerly vortice kind of becomes the dominant, and that makes all the difference, because then again, it gets over the Yucatan Peninsula, gets into the Gulf of Mexico, and interacts more with northerly currents. It ends up being the stronger storm. So honestly, if the stronger the storm is before it hits the Yucatan Peninsula, probably means the northerly vortice is the one that dominated. Now, there's so many factors at play of this, and it's really hard to figure out. We'll know a lot more as we get mid to late week. But the Euro, why it's so aggressive and so much more north and has a landfalling hurricane scenario for Texas, is because that northerly vortice dominates, therefore takes the northerly route, and that's why you have a landfalling hurricane ultimately in Texas as we get into around Tuesday morning of next week. So back it up here, see if I can get it going here. One thing I like to show here is basically a 200 millibar wind streams. So you back it up. This is right around when you get some development down here. Now you notice this area kind of right into here. So this is what you call an upper level anticyclone. So basically these help to basically ventilate storms, and there's normally a low shear environment, which the more low shear you have, the more you have a promoting factor for tropical development. And you can kind of see it here. It's basically like an upper high pressure, like an upper ridge of high pressure here. That's kind of what this is. And they nickname it multiple things, upper troughs. But this helps to basically ventilate the system. And when you have this in place, if you can get the main vortice to be north, then it's over warm waters. The sea surface temperatures are very warm, and you have a favorable environment for tropical development. So another big player here, and this is a evolving situation that we have to figure out. As you look at the GFS, here's our system down here trying to form, and there it is. At the same time, you have a pretty stout ridge of high pressure up here trying to bear down on the storm. Well, on the GFS, it sticks its nose out a little bit. That also is really going to influence the track more in the medium to long term. So if you have a stronger storm right here, it can kind of bear its nose a little bit more into high ridge of high pressure. Therefore, a stronger, I've mentioned this many times before in other videos talking about the tropics, a stronger storm can hold its own a little bit more and kind of barrel its way into a ridge of high pressure, especially a weaker area, which this is kind of. A weaker storm is going to influence this. Basically, what I'm saying is a weaker storm is going to be more influenced by even weaker ridge of high pressure. Therefore, it's going to get kind of shoved south, which is what the GFS is showing. It's kind of getting shoved south and just being the weaker vortice and taking the more southerly route. So basically, a stronger storm you have around in this range, I think the more northerly scenario you're going to have. That I kind of am starting to know. So if you look at the latest GFS ensembles, going forward here, you see this area. This is the area we're talking about. And you notice the latest GFS ensembles from 18Z, which is the latest evening run, take the southerly route big time. In fact, they've actually trended more south from the lunchtime models and the morning models. So a lot of the GFS and the GFS ensembles really like Mexico as a landfalling scenario. You look at the latest SpaghettiOs, or basically the European ensembles, and it's kind of split. You'll see the signal pop up here. I know these are always kind of hard to see on the screen, but either way, it's a very strong signal for tropical development. At the same time, you have what could be Ida also, or Julian. I think you're going to have Ida and Julian either way between one of these systems. I think you're definitely going to have a name taken out the hurricane list between either one. But strong signal right here in the Gulf of Mexico, the western Gulf of Mexico. And as you can tell, you see where you have the red circles, the purple circles, that is the stronger storms. That's a stronger storm. You notice all the stronger storms go north of the ensembles. The stronger scenarios go into Texas. There's a reason because of that. And that's because the more northern storm is going to, like I said, kind of grind the base of that ridge of high pressure more. So we have to watch trends, but that's a strong signal for a tropical system in the Gulf of Mexico here in the next several days. So we have to watch out for this, guys. Also, looking forward, you look way out in the Atlantic. It has 97L, basically kind of looking like it fizzles apart, and then it interacts with what looks like the jet stream way up in the North Atlantic and turns into an all-out hurricane off the latest European. It's going out to sea. It's not going to bother anybody unless it somehow survives and interacts with Europe somehow. But that's a pretty strong hurricane way up in the North Atlantic. At the same time, it looks like 98L kind of dies out. But there's another, and these are the ones we have to watch as we get into the first part of September. You have a favorable Kelvin wave, which interacts with that CAG scenario, which I just broke down in the video. You have a favorable phase moving in the first part of September. And these, when you get the MDR going, which is the main development region, which is the tropical Atlantic out here, and you start to see these things popping up, especially when you go under 200 hours and it starts to become consistent, these are the systems you have to watch out for, them long tracks that eventually can slam the Caribbean and places like that. But we'll continue to watch. If you're in areas like Jamaica over the next several days, you're probably going to start to get some nasty tropical weather. I don't think you're going to get any kind of tropical storm or hurricane. Definitely expect some disturbances to move on through here as we get into this weekend. But that's all I got, guys. The tropics aren't slowing down. It's going to be a main topic. I got my eyes still peeled looking for that first cold front of the fall. Still, a man can dream, hoping it's going to roll through at the same time as the first weekend of college football. But I still ain't forgot about that, guys. I'm going to be checking, waiting for that first good fall cold front to roll through for the eastern U.S. But that's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in, and y'all have a blessed evening.